You're listening to the UAE's #1 talk radio station.
This is Afternoons with Helen Farmer
On Dubai Eye 103.8.
I'm feeling a little bit insecure about my job because I keep on hearing more and more about AI replicating voices, about even encroaching into creative fields. And we've even seen a lawyer robot taking to the desk here in the UAE. As AI and automation is rapidly reshaping the job market, major companies like Amazon, Meta are cutting thousands of positions, leaving many to wonder, are any jobs safe? We've got new technologies taking over. It's no longer a question of if, but when you will need to pivot. It was GITEX just last week. Robot dogs and all sorts of technology to be excited about, but also to be aware of. So this hour, whether you're facing redundancy or simply looking to future-proof your skills, how can you embrace the AI revolution instead of fearing it? We're also going to be talking about reinvention in general. Is it ever too late? Christina Ioannidis is with us today, an experienced marketer, speaker, trainer, author. She's worked all around the world delivering success for a huge range of companies and is also the creator of the Female Majlis on top of her game. Were you at GITEX last week, Christina?
No, I was not. Well, actually, I was. I lie. Of course I was. Hello. It's the menopause brain.
Well, we're talking about the menopause brain at 4 o'clock. You're more than welcome to stick around and contribute to that.
Yes, I was. And it was all about AI.
I've never seen an event like it. We were there last Tuesday and my gosh, volume of people, but the volume of brand new ideas and technology. And as I said, in some ways, hugely exciting. In some ways, what does the future hold? So to your mind, how do you think AI and automation are impacting jobs globally? And what industries are we seeing the most, significant changes in?
Well, listen, AI is everywhere. So there is not going to be an industry that is not going to be touched. So what is critical at this point, both from a corporate perspective, but also from an individual perspective, is that ability, like you said, to reinvent, to really, as I like to call it, reboot, rebuild, reconquer. Because it's only by having a transformational mindset that companies can not only innovate, but also at the same time, the employees that are within the companies perform better. Internal resilience is key.
What we're also seeing a lot of in the workplace is bye-bye boomers and the younger generations in terms of volume of people, whether it's in the workplace or in the workforce, taking over. So we are seeing generations who are digital natives, who have grown up not having an embarrassing Hotmail email address like I did, but, growing up on social media. Basically what I'm saying is people who are more keen, quicker to adopt, more agile when it comes to technology. So it feels like this is just going to ramp up tenfold to what any of us could have predicted 10 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? You're old enough to remember the year 2000, where we had this...
maybe not Millennium Eve itself, but yes.
that time of life where we were told, oh my God,
Y2K,
the Y2K, exactly.
The computers are going to crash.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm old enough to have also, and this was the time I got made redundant twice. And for me, it's a very, very similar time frame. Why? Because it's exactly the same behaviors. What is different is the extent. So when we're talking about the redundancies on Amazon, 14,000, Meta, 11,000, we're looking at enormous numbers of employees that are being let go. So reinvention is the name of the game.
So with those companies, those big names, what are the primary drivers behind those layoffs, do you think? Is AI playing a role? And ultimately, what tech is maybe being brought in to replace us mere humans?
Well, there is an element of that, but we can't forget that at the time of COVID-19, these technology companies did ramp up their employee base because there was so much demand for particularly Amazon, for their services.
It was a rare day where we didn't have a delivery to our door.
Exactly, or a delivery or 10.
Yeah.
But now it's a different world. And yes, AI is making jobs easier to a certain extent. I mean, now you can do it, like you said, voiceovers. In the future, you might not even need actors. It's terrible, I know. But what this means is that we all need to think about ourselves and how we're going to be relevant in the future.
And our children as well.
Exactly. So they also need to learn that kind of what I call the chameleonic mindset, having that mindset where you're able to adapt like a chameleon, a bit like Madonna does.
I love a reinvention. And I've had a few messages about that, about changing jobs, identity even, kind of later in life. Would you mind speaking about your own redundancies? Because I think it's really interesting to think about how you've not necessarily reinvented yourself, but it is a case of, adapt or become extinct.
Yeah.
So would you mind taking us back then to when you lost your job? Because I think that could really speak to a lot of people who might be having to reboot and reconsider.
Yeah. So in the year 2000, as I mentioned, I was working in the telecoms, so tech world, and I got made redundant twice in 2 years. Completely unexpectedly. This is in the UK, when I was living in the UK. Before I entered the workforce, I wanted to be the next CEO of Procter & Gamble. I was ambitious, I was ready to go gung-ho in the corporate world. And those were completely derailing. And they came out of left field. So I'm a typical person who, in the first instance, I was okay with the first redundancy, but the second one hit me really hard. Why? Because I thought, it's Christina. The first thing that we do when we get made redundant is we think it's us. There's a problem with us. We take it personally. And so one of the things that I actually talk about when we're talking about the reboot, rebuild, reconquer, we have to remember it's not just us. Mm-hmm. There's thousands of people, particularly now, that are in the same boat. But what we have to be conscious of is that the market is a lot more flooded with new talent. So how do you make yourself relevant? And that is the big question, which I can definitely go into.
How did you bounce back yourself?
Well, interestingly, I bounced back by becoming an entrepreneur. But get this, I had a business failure. So double redundancy followed by a business failure in the year of in the space of 5 years.
What was the business, if you don't
The business was actually, the term bespoke? Well, this was in the year 2003 when I started this business, which was around bespoke jewelry. The word bespoke wasn't sexy as it is today. So I created a bespoke jewelry shop in Mayfair in London, which in itself is very expensive, as we know. But I had ambitions of actually creating a very new concept, which I was too soon, and
you
the
were
business
ahead
was
of
too
your
expensive.
time.
Yes, exactly. A lot of entrepreneurs face that.
What did that failure teach you about yourself and about business?
It taught me, first of all, keep your overheads low when it comes to business, right? Keep your costs down. The second thing is you always have to think about what your business represents and what your role in it is. In my case, my role was a CEO, and I was very good at being the front woman, but I was not good at sitting in a basement in Mayfair trying to run a business operationally. So it taught me actually you're better focusing on what your strengths are and bringing other people to do the things that complement you that you may not necessarily be as strong in.
Are you familiar with the concept of A, B, C and D jobs? Have you heard about this before?
No, tell me.
So I think everyone listening today who works will in their job have elements of their job that they love and that they're good at. And there are probably aspects of their job that they really don't enjoy and are rubbish at. Okay. Yep. So what's quite interesting is to think about how can I be doing more of the A job.
Absolutely.
But that's not to say it'd be great to delegate all the D jobs in your position.
Exactly.
But however, sometimes you just need to be like, okay, this afternoon it's a D job day. We're just going to literally, smash through what I have to do as part of that job. And I think recognizing your strengths takes a lot of self-awareness, maturity. Sometimes it takes fresh eyes as well for someone to come in and go, do you know what, Christina, you are absolutely the front woman of this business, but I don't know if this is true to you, but it was true of me. Excel spreadsheets. Get someone else to do that.
There you go. I'm like you. I'm like you. I'm
For me,
absolutely like
can you guess the D part of my job has anything to do with Excel spreadsheets? I'm like, no, thank you. Right, some really interesting messages coming in on this. If you want to join the conversation, and I'd love to know from you, are you worried about your job? James saying AI won't take, this is interesting, won't take anyone's job. The people who learn AI will.
There you go.
Absolutely true. It is the way we think about ChatGPT is like, oh, it's not going to be hanging around. I use ChatGPT as a complement to my job, as much as in the same way I would use Google to my job. So,
exactly.
James, I think it's a tool. You're on the money there. What about the rest of us? What if you're feeling threatened by tech? What if you're simply over the job you're currently doing? In studio today, we've got speaker, trainer, author of the book Reboot, Rebuild, Reconquer, Christina Ioannidis is with us. And I love this topic because I feel like so many of us get resigned to humdrum existence of well, I've made my bed, now I need to lie in it for the next 60 years. And that is absolutely not the case. I wanted to ask you, Christina, do you think it is ever too late to reinvent yourself, to pursue a completely different new career path?
Absolutely not. So I know you and I are passionate about what midlife women go through, so I'm not going to focus purely on that. But midlife is a great time to reinvent. But any time in life is an opportunity to turn over a new leaf. And in fact, Brian Tracy, the business guru, says that any individual can go up to through 7 different reinventions in their life. And I think that's just now being exacerbated
and
with
embraced.
the advent. Yeah, so we can now embrace the opportunity of saying, right, I'm gonna shift, I'm gonna pivot, and there's nothing wrong with it. The problem is, Helen, is that we've not been taught that this is something that's going to be needed in our life. We've been taught, you're going to go in, you're going to have a corporate job, you're going to work 9 to 5, and it's going to go, all upwards, and it's all going to be dandy. And we know that the reality is the complete opposite.
Yeah, rather than a straight line up, often the wiggly lines are, more exciting, I think, sometimes, but sometimes a lot scarier as well. I think if you have been brought up in a mindset where it is that you will go to university and study something and then you will do that for 50 years, there's a lot of safety in that. There's a lot of safety in hierarchy and promotions and incremental pay increases. And I understand that. I really do, especially if you've come from a scarcity background where a regular salary might not have been the case for your family. But it kind of breaks my heart that a lot of people have dreams that they will never realise because it's on the other side of their fear. What advice do you give to people who might be listening and going, oh gosh, Christina was talking about setting up her own jewellery company, or I've got an idea for a book, but I can't get past this idea that it's not for me or it's not for me right now.
Okay, can I talk you through my 3-part model? The reboot, rebuild, reconquer. So the first part is the reboot. In the reboot, we really have to, first of all, embrace the fact, like you said, transformation and change is the new constant. So AI is a great example where we have to readapt, re-gauge ourselves. The second piece is we have to develop the ability to understand how we have learned and what value we can bring to organizations or to a new venture that we might be considering. So I have a great exercise in the book called the Life Milestone Graph, which is draw that wiggly line of your career and look at the ebbs and the flow, the lows, and look at what you've learned at each good or bad moment. That's why I talked to you about my double redundancy and business failure, because those taught me immense lessons. I call it the most expensive MBA, by the way, in the world, and that's part of my reframing, right? The third is whatever you are passionate about, that gives you an indication of something that you might want to continue doing in your life. And on that note, it's important to consider aligning your passion and your purpose, especially the older we get. When we're younger, maybe we might be thinking, I'll just follow my passion. But the older we get, research suggests that purpose becomes even more important from a social, from a community engagement perspective. And lastly, with the reboot, we have to know what we're worth and quantify our achievements. And women are actually quite bad at doing this. Men are very, very good at this.
We've been talking about rebooting. What about rebuilding?
So once we've gone through these areas that I talked about earlier, in the rebuild phase is really visualizing what we want and what we don't want. So in the first part of the model that I spoke to you about, we're focusing on, okay, this is my experience to date, this is what I've learned, etc. Now it's, okay, how do I see myself in the future? The first thing is what we don't want. A very good example is what I did with myself is to sit down and write down that I never wanted again to be in a basement of a shop. I did not want to be operationally minded. I wanted to be creating something where I would be doing what I am passionate about and supporting others, etc.
That's so interesting, because when I was freelance and I was doing a lot of writing, I had that big learning as well, which was I love writing, but I hate working alone.
Yeah,
I found myself falling into a depression when I wasn't being able to connect with people face to face in real life. And I was like, okay, I can never do that, which was a really important learning. I do not ever want to be glued to a computer, 9 until 6, whereas some people really thrive in that deep work on their own. It's like,
and
no,
that's fine.
Not for me. That's fine.
Yeah, but that's where we have to focus on what it is that we don't want, so we have a clear picture. Then we go into, I've got a very good exercise which I love, which is called the Life Transformation Vision Board. When I am in the next 30 odd years, remember, I'm in my 50s now, right? I'm early 50s. So I know I've got another 50 years to live, or other women also do, hopefully, and men. So what do we want our life to look like? What lifestyle do we want? What financial objectives do we have? So once we have a vision board of the long term, then we can start thinking about, okay, what are the steps I need to take to actually achieve what is on my vision board? And when you create a vision board, something very powerful happens in our minds, which is essentially it kind of gets cemented. And our objectives become a lot clearer. So that's something that we also do. And then the third thing for me, which was super powerful, and I'll talk about that in the context of the shop. I focus on helping people build their brand you 2.0. When we can visualize ourselves being that person that we want to be, as a result of doing this exercise around the life transformation, we actually embody that character. We embody that much more easily. So I remember when I started my jewelry business, I remember I had to take a step back and say to myself, Christina, you are that jewelry creative designer businesswoman who is going to create something powerful for this market. So there was a lot of that narrative that had to happen internally, which is what we also need to kind of convince ourselves that we're part.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people might struggle to identify what their goals might be. But I think it's much easier to imagine who you want to be.
Exactly.
Do I want to be, I don't know, a reliable, trustworthy, inspirational person? And what steps do I need to take every single day to get close to that? One analogy I heard recently, which I really, really loved, which really relates to what we're talking about today, is that life is basically one long road trip. And I am, at 42 years old, I'm 42 miles along my road trip. And it's never too late to pull off the road, take a moment, check your sat nav. Am I going down the road I want to do? And if you're not, maybe it's a chance to do a U-turn and get back on track. We've had some really interesting messages, including this voice note from Maria, who is doing just that.
After 20 years working in the corporate world, it just came to the end that I was just doing everything for everyone and I was not fully satisfied with myself. So I'm in my 40s and I decided that it was finally time to take a leap and reinvent myself, reinvent how working is, because again, I've been working for corporate 20 years. So working on my own business is definitely something that I'm very scared about. But my question for this show, and thank you so much for having this amazing topic, is how do I make sure I'm on the right path? Meaning that I already have my business set up, I already have my business idea, I already start, talking to my friends and my network about what the business is going to be, which is nutrition and wellness coach. What should it be the next step so I don't burn myself out? Because I'm definitely going through a lot of ideas, options and things like that. And I just want to make sure I stay focused.
Such a fantastic question, Maria. Thank you for raising this, because when you start out, you are everything. You are HR, you are PR, you are ideas, you are invoicing, you are everything. And it's a really exciting time for so many people because you're finally free of the shackles of the corporate world. But that burnout is very, very real for entrepreneurs. Christina, could you speak to that for Maria and anyone else in the same boat?
No, and first of all, Maria, well done.
Congrats.
Yeah, because it's a big leap.
Now, let's give her a shout out because it's fitstyleme.com. She didn't ask me to do that, but there you go. It all helps.
You are fabulous. So for Maria and anyone else who's out there, it's a real struggle. Everyone goes through it. What I always say is the 80-20 rule. Focus on the 20% of activities that give you 80% of your revenue. So focus on your business, on the bits that are going to give you cash in. And that is the number one. That's what you make priority. Then the other thing I say is, like we were talking earlier, get people to support you who can complement your skill set, that you are not necessarily as strong as in doing. So even if it has to be a partner, a friend, someone that you
virtual assistant,
a virtual assistant. Oh, they're fantastic.
I need one. I need someone to do my insurance forms, and
they're fantastic virtual assistants. I've always had a virtual assistant, and there's loads of platforms where you can find them. So they offload a lot of that admin stuff that most of us entrepreneurs are not really good at.
I love this 80-20. So focus 80% of your time on. Is that to say that
yes,
right?
Right.
On the money maker. And Maria, huge congratulations. We've only got a minute to cover reconquering.
Okay, the reconquering is don't do it alone. It takes a village.
Thank you.
Number 2 is make sure you're redefining fear to fantasized experiences appearing real. And I tell you where I got that in the future episode. And finally, get people around you. Build your board of directors. Not just one mentor, many mentors who can help you through this transition.
The book sounds fantastic. It came out just a few months ago, Christina. For anyone that wants a copy, someone can send me the word link, and I will happily send you the link so you can get your hands on that and explore some of these concepts further. Cannot thank you enough. Such a brilliant one. And let's just hope that the robots are not coming for us. We are chameleons, Christina. We are chameleons.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And don't forget, sharing is caring. If you're listening to this podcast, thinking about someone in your life that could benefit from information, whether it's real life stories or expert advice, hit that share button and they can listen on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and the Dubai Eye website too.